Tom Engblom, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's exciting. You are kind of the Swiss Army knife of everyone knows who you are in this industry. So it's an honor to have you here in the studio. You are a community association expert, potentially the community association expert. You have roles in real estate brokerage, property management, HOA financial management. You're a board president of a high rise down in Panama City Beach. You have a laundry list of accolades behind your name in your email signature. Talk a little bit about that. Give me a little bit of your background.
Well, I was very fortunate starting out 40 years ago, living in Illinois. Didn't know what to do with a career, a lifestyle. So I turned around, and what I did is I went into apartment management. And the particular company that I was working for, they decided to go into association management, and never knew what that meant, what it was. Actually, I read a book on it that the owner gave me, and before not too long, I had 17 associations.
When was this?
This was 1990. So it goes back quite a long time before the computer almost was created.
And this is where associations started to become a thing.
This is where they started to become a thing. They were very prevalent in the suburbs of Chicago, because what more of a perfect lifestyle to have that you could pay a reasonable amount of assessments, monthly dues, and have a swimming pool, have a clubhouse, be able to make friends with neighbors and become part of the bigger picture. And it was really interesting learning to deal with all the different components of a property, from the roof, the paving, landscaping, pets, animals, you name it. And what transpired over that time is you grew, and then you started to learn about different organizations, and that's when I started to pursue getting designations in the industry. And after 10 years, I became somewhat bored with doing that type of work, because the level of advancement in the suburbs was smaller or less than what it was in downtown Chicago. And of course, I wanted to make more money. So where are you going to make more money? You're going to make more money in downtown Chicago. And instead of managing out, I managed up. And my income went up dramatically. And I went from handling 17 properties on my own to supervising 17 properties with on-site managers.
And is that what you mean, Tom, when you say you, instead of managing out, you manage up, meaning large condos?
Large condos. So, I mean, a typical property in the suburb could be anywhere from 75 to maybe 200 units. You go downtown Chicago, they start at 200 and they go up from there. And when you look at, say, Marina Towers was one of the properties I supervised. Two twin towers, 65 stories high, with 896 units, 15 people on the board. And that's what made it very interesting, because the level of education was much different downtown. You had attorneys, you had engineers, you had many professional people. And in fact, one of the buildings I supervised was a very elegant co-op, where the assessments were just shocking what they paid. And in fact, they had 36 units and 56 full-time employees. So it was all about customer service.
Wow. So white glove service.
White glove
definition for
and
that one.
I never realized that, gee, how cool would it be that you're in your unit, you push a button, and your car is waiting for you downstairs. Or once a week, we clean your vehicle for you. Or when you come in the front door, a doorman is there. Or to have a receiving room clerk that if a package comes in, they put it in your unit. It was very, very white glove. But again, you pay for what you get. Now, not every building is like that in Chicago, but the ones closer to downtown, the Gold Coast, is where it was very exclusive and demanding. And over time, I mean, it was great. It was very educational. It taught me quite a bit. And then after having all these meetings, and when you think about that, I had 17 meetings a month. There's only 22 working days in a month, and those include Fridays. So it's like I'm getting to the point that why am I doing this for the money? So I decided to go on site, and I always make the comment that I had to be there 40 hours a week, but I only had to work 20 because based on my skill set, that's what that particular association wanted. And I did that for a couple of years. I went back to school. I achieved my master's degree when I was there. That's what a lot of individuals do. And I was actually going to get out of the industry. And I was very close. And then I got contacted by a recruiter. And that was March, or actually January of 2004. And I got recruited by a national bank. And I started to work for the bank. And the whole premise was to go out and sell services for lockbox and bank loans. And I haven't looked back since, because I started with 3 states, which were Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois. And then I did well at that, bringing in deposits, making friends, connections. And during that time, I also achieved a designation and became a national instructor for that organization. And the whole time prior to this, I was also a university professor teaching a real estate program, running that. So I was going in many different directions, but it gave a great foundation. And then getting into the bank, starting to learn that aspect, it really opened many, many more doors for me that I saw. And then ironically, going to these different markets, and I added Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So I had 7 states that I covered. I was traveling 3 weeks a month, teaching, just turn around and living this stuff 7 days a week. And what I always say, it doesn't matter where you live, it's all the same. It's just the issues may be a little bit different based on the state laws with collection, or how they reserve, or how they have to fund, or what they have to do. And now look at where I'm at today. And I continue with education because I think that opens up doors and it gives knowledge and experience. And fortunately, I was at the right place at the right time. And I was able to help different organizations grow and expand the knowledge to the novice individuals that are out there.
It's just an incredible background, incredible story. I mean, I'm looking at your designations right now: PhD, CMCA, AMS, PCAM, which I know is extremely hard to get, ARM, CPM, EBT. I don't even know what some of those mean. So basically as I'm looking at that, I'm seeing just an incredible wealth of knowledge. Author, right? I didn't even mention that one. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your book too, or books. Do you have multiple books? Books. And, for those listening, Tom is everyone. If you're in the HOA industry in any capacity, you either know someone or that knows you, or you directly. It's like, what is that? The Kevin Bacon thing where if there's a movie, you can track back like 5 or 6 actors and they've been in a movie with him or something. That's you. Like you're a chameleon. Right. You're everywhere. And I love that about you. So it's just great to have you here. And I want to talk a little bit too, and have people kind of understand some of these different certifications that you have, specifically the more difficult ones like the PCAM. So if you can touch on that briefly, I think that would be helpful for those that are tuning in that that just understand what does that mean. To have these specific designations in this industry is, from the outside perspective, when I see stuff like that, all these different designations, it's like when you see a military general with all this stuff on his chest versus like an early military career that doesn't have very many.
Right.
That's you, right? So talk a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Well, so there's two organizations that are out there, and I'll go with the one beginning. The first one was or is IREM, and that's the Institute of Real Estate Management, and they were founded in 1931, and they were for when the Depression hit, and they were for the education of property managers. And I originally started going after that, and their first designation is an ARM, Accredited Resident Manager. You take a course through that, you take a test, and then you achieve that designation. The next one is a CPM, Certified Public Manager, or Certified Property Manager, I should say, and you have to take several classes for that, and then your forte is to manage commercial property. And originally that was my goal, to get into commercial management, but because of the path I chose, with starting with apartments and getting into condos, I really didn't have the knowledge or expertise to deal with commercial property, although I did manage commercial property for the management company that I work for. But you get that credential. It's very high up. And in fact, for my master's degree, I did a comparison of the CPM and the PCAM in Northeastern Illinois and what the different salary ranges were for each one. But then the next organization is CAI, Community Association Institute. It was founded in 1971, and they just recently had their 50th anniversary a couple years ago. And it's for the education of board members and community association managers and business partners. And I would recommend everyone to join that, put that in their association budget. And everything that you're going through individually today, that someone has already experienced that, and you can find that information on their website or in a magazine somewhere. But initially, beginning, you get your CMCA, Certified Manager Community Association, and you take a class for that, 16-hour course, and then you turn around and you take a very challenging test that the passing ratio is about 50%. And I must say, I have to brag for a moment, that I create a 4-hour review class for that, and I increase your probability of passing to about 95%. And I'm proud that that's being offered in 5 different countries. I probably teach it about 40 times a year, either personally, in person, or virtually. But then you achieve that, and then 3 years later, you can apply for your AMS, which is a credit management specialist. And then your next one is your PCAM. And basically, if you summarize it, it would be equal to a master's degree in association management. And you have to take 6 classes. Each class is broken down in a different category, from maintenance, finance, government, insurance, financial. And that's where I was a former national instructor for that. And then ultimately, you have to take a case study. In the case study, you go to a property, and you'll sit there for 2 days, and they'll give you volumes of information of what's going on at that property. And then subsequently, you have 30 days to answer 10 questions, but each question could have sub-questions. So you could have 30, 40 questions that you could answer. And what makes it challenging is that you have 30 days to do it. And I think today there's only 3,600 people in the universe that have that designation. So it's very well admired. It's very prestigious and it's worthwhile to get. And of course, with more education, with the designation, you go higher in the industry and you make more money. And that's ultimately what I think everyone wants to do.
So there's 3,600 people that have the PCAM. How many managers, like CMCAs, are there?
Oh, I think they recently had a study that there were over 35,000.
So
they have
less,
it.
like 10%.
Yeah.
That will end up getting a PCAM. So
It makes it challenging to get your PCAM because the dedication. I mean, think about that. You have to take 6 classes. Each class is going to take 2 days. You have to take a test. You have to write that case study. It's very challenging to achieve.
Yeah. The PCAM is, and I know a couple people that have achieved that, yourself obviously included. And it's always a big deal. It's very highly celebrated when someone does that, and for good reason. You've been doing this for a really long time, Tom. What have you seen evolve in the community association industry over the last, 40 years?
I'll tell you, I think what's evolved is obviously everything is advancing with technology. That's, I think, the big issue that I see. But also, more importantly, managers are becoming more sophisticated, more intelligent with what they have to do. They have to have more knowledge and skill set. Before,
they're being asked more today than they were.
They're definitely being asked more today. It's not about picking up dog defecation or we always talk about the 3 P's: people, parking, and pets. That has gone out the window now. I mean, look at
what changed.
Technology, and I think
like an expectation level from homeowners.
I think it's expectation.
Even if you have like some of the buildings that you've worked in that you said were, they had more employees than they did homeowners. So you have white glove service. Are there these suburban townhomes and suburban condos and stuff that the expectation is so high, even though the fee isn't as high? Like, where's the disparity? What's happened in the last 15, 25 years to have, the 3 P's, like you mentioned, go out the window, and there's this book of expectations that is on a property manager that didn't exist before?
Well, I think individuals today, individually, they're just more demanding because I think people are more sophisticated with what they expect because everything is instantaneous, what they can find on the internet. And I mean, look at what you can watch on TV, or why is my internet so slow? Why don't we have fiber optics?
Kids don't know what commercials are these days. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Why is it so much better? Why are we putting a roof on that's only going to last 20 years? Why shouldn't it last 40 or 50 now? How come we don't have solar panels up? Why isn't our boiler system more efficient? Why is it costing so much for the elevator? I mean, you look at, even going back 30 years ago, smart elevators. I just put in smart elevators where I'm board president, and the system learned patterns for efficiency. So it knows that at 7 o'clock in the morning, people are going to work, and the elevators need to be at certain floors. At 4 in the afternoon, people are coming home. I mean, it's accelerating so fast with everything that's going on. I mean,
and these managers have to stay in tune with all of it.
What's the percentage of people that write checks now versus dealing with ACH and look at Venmo and Zelle? I mean, it's just endless. And, years ago, you would call in a work order. Now, you don't call it in. You can go right into the software and place that work order, and it'll give you time frames about what needs to be done, how quick something
Sure.
should happen.
So the expectation level has risen and the patience level has gone down. So here we've entered into this thing where it makes sense on the management companies that have this revolving door of turnover with their property managers.
Mm-hmm.
What can be done to combat that? I mean, I know we talk a lot about technology, and this is something that I want to get into with you because it's everywhere. I mean, you turn the corner anywhere you go, and someone's going to be talking about artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're extremely plugged in. What are you hearing? And what are you seeing? What are people saying about this technology? Are you finding that there are a lot of people that are excited to adopt this? Are you finding a lot of people that are afraid to adopt this technology? And kind of part two of the question, what do you think is going to happen? Because it's happening so fast.
I think it's a little bit of both. People are excited about it, but they're also afraid of it because they don't know what to expect. And I think that they're going to embrace it. I think it's going to be better for the industry as a whole because it's going to make everyone more productive, more efficient. And I think what it goes back to before, what we were kind of alluding to, how can we make it better? I think it's all about communication. I think it's how you train people. I mean, here's a great example as a sample. The particular management company that I work with in Florida, where they're managing our property, they just switched to a software, and a lot of people were struggling. They couldn't figure out how to get in. They couldn't figure out how to do a dashboard. They couldn't know how to look up their account. So I took it upon myself to contact the management company and let's do training and show them how to log in, how to look at their accounts, how to do a work order, how to look up documents on the association. I mean, think about before that a homeowner would call and say, I need copies of the minutes now. Mm-hmm. Well, you no longer have to do that because the minutes are on the system.
Yeah, the minutes are on the system, but there's always, or at least to date, have always been some human interaction with that. Someone's got to upload it. Someone's got to create the folder, which isn't a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But if the management company or the manager's not on the ball, sure, you might have the minutes somewhere, but maybe they're not accessible to the homeowners. Right. And from what I'm hearing is there's an ability for AI to essentially just do all these tasks. And so a board member emails into the management company or the manager, hey, here are the minutes from last week's meeting. And AI will recognize that and just put it in the portal for them, along with a laundry list of other things. It feels that that this isn't real. Mm-hmm. It feels that this is kind of this alternate universe that we've all talked about, mm-hmm. And there's been movies about for decades. iRobot, Terminator, like all these movies about artificial intelligence, and it's now here.
Right.
It's real, and it's happening at a rate that is, I think, just faster than what people anticipated. And I was talking to a COO of a really large management company recently, and basically this person was saying, if you don't do this, you will absolutely fall behind. No questions asked.
Right.
I mean, have you seen anything similar to this as far as like technological changes over the years? Like, what does this remind you of?
Well, I mean, and I concur with your statement that if you're afraid of AI now and you're not, and if you don't use it, someone that uses it will replace you because they can be more efficient. They can be more productive. And I mean, how many people now are still, one of the big cardinal rules that I talk about all the time, managers managers should not be taking board minutes. They probably do it, but according to Condo Heaven and the CMCA, you should not be taking minutes.
I think, and you'd probably agree with me on that topic, that there are so many board members that the expectation is that the manager does take the minutes.
Right.
It's probably one of the big confusions.
And it should not be. It's no different than, does the board president have a right to vote? Yes, they have the same right to vote as anyone else on the board. But I mean, how many managers are taking minutes today, and are they using AI to take minutes?
Sure. And real quick, for those that have the opposing view on, well, yeah, my expectation is the manager should take minutes. In your opinion, why shouldn't they?
Well, they can't. People cannot multitask, and you can't run the board meeting and take copious minutes and be accurate.
Sure. Easy enough. Simple as that. And I think, and I've experienced this with AI recently, like in Zoom meetings. They have Zoom AI stuff, and it's just everywhere. Everywhere you turn now, there's some sort of AI thing. Where after the Zoom meeting, it literally will send me an email with extremely detailed meeting notes, what the to-dos are that came out of that meeting, and no one lifted a finger for that.
Right.
And so that's going to be something, or should be something, that everyone utilizes. So it's not replacing. I think this is where a lot of people get scared of it, where, oh, it's going to replace my job. Not necessarily. It's going to make you way better at your job.
Right.
And I think people really have to understand that, right? We don't ride horses everywhere anymore. We ride in cars, right? Thank goodness we can fly. I mean, we can fly. We don't have to drive even across the country. I mean, things just change. My point is, we're not doing things the same way today that we were 20, 50, 100 years ago. This is kind of one of those in the timeline of technology. This is a big, there's a big asterisk by what's happening right now. And if you don't adopt it, you're just gonna fall behind. And I'm seeing it.
And I think that's what's going to make the difference between different levels of management companies in the future, because smaller companies may not have the resources that the larger ones will have, and therefore they're not going to be able to survive because they can't compete based on cost alone.
Sure. So are you kind of anticipating or predicting with that train of thought that your smaller mom and pop type management companies will no longer be a thing in 5 years or 10 years?
I don't think they'll be around unless they embrace it, because they can't compete. I mean, I was talking to a management company in Florida in the Panhandle there, and I mean, every manager or CAM down there that she has only has 4 associations. How can they survive with that? Because they're doing meaningful tasks that take up too much time for them, and they're in QuickBooks. They can't compete with the larger companies that have more efficiency and productivity.
A thing that I hear, I'm really glad we're on this topic, because you hear from, and I'm not going to trash any management company, that's not what we do, but larger management companies, maybe, household name management companies, like when I'm talking to a potential client that contacts HOA Assist, oftentimes the reason that they're looking to move away is because they just feel like they're getting lost. That company's too big, right? For their liking, which is fair. Everyone's got their own taste. But do you think with kind of separating the marketplace,
I think
there's going to be just, what are these communities going to do when they have to, their only option is to go from one giant company to another giant company, and there's not that kind of small option?
Well, you're always going to have the small mom and pop at a certain point, because someone then will work at the gigantic management company. They're going to say that I can't service my clients. There's too much going on, and they need to have that boutique management. So they'll go back to those smaller companies, and maybe that individual only have 5 or 6 accounts, just enough to survive and get by. But I mean, ultimately, I think what it comes down to is it comes down to that individual manager, that CAM, that's going to take care of them and fulfill their needs that they want.
Sure. So it's not necessarily, which makes sense. We've seen this. You're saying it's not necessarily the company that they work for, but do you have a good manager?
Right.
Which makes a lot of sense. I've seen managers come and go out of companies for years, and that community's perspective of the management company isn't based on what that management company's logo is.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply based on who they were interacting with as a person with their manager at that time, right? If that manager was with company A for 2 years and then moves to company B for 2 years, that client that was working with that manager doesn't care what company they were for. They just want to be with that particular manager.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean, AI is just, it's shaping the future of not only HOAs, but just everything. What are some of the things that you've seen that I know you're plugged in that are altering the way that management companies do business? So we talked about a little bit about like some of the admin things. What are you seeing? What is AI doing for management companies that would be attractive to boards?
I think the easiest one is the minutes. Think about having board meetings, how efficient you can be with that. Response times for work orders. That's another one. Parking systems, what you can do with a parking system and proper parking. Think about how you can go in and you can register for your pool pass, how you can set up move in, move out fees. Orientations could be part of AI. It's just endless to what can be done with
and it works 24/7
and 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yep.
That you don't have to worry about. I mean, if I have a work order I can put in, I don't have to wait for that manager to respond to me. Think about if I have a question about my delinquency, I don't have to call a manager, have them look it up. I can deal directly with that chat box or AI and talk about it. I mean, personally, look at all the time it saved me with Chat GP now and what I can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I want to write an article, if I want to do a PowerPoint, I mean, it's just endless to what can be done.
Yeah, the framework is 90% done with 10% of the output that you would have had to do in the past, and then you simply tweak it to make it your own. Yeah, it's just incredible. And homeowners, I think a message to them is, although like you're never going to get away from human service,
right?
Like that's here to stay. It will always be here to stay. Thankfully, right? I mean, we all appreciate that, but I think a message to homeowners, and correct me if I'm wrong, is homeowners, this is here to stay too. So you're going to have to get used to interacting with AI. You may not want to use it, but whether you like it or not, you will be interacting with it. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. And kind of going off on a different tangent for a minute, but always talk about this for a moment. When I first started working for the bank, we had a local P.O. box that we had set up, and people would mail it to that post office box, and then that particular post office would FedEx it to Arizona to process the payments. Well, think about it now. We're a global economy. So instead of sending it to the local P.O. box, you're mailing it directly to Arizona. That's the same concept with AI. You just have to adapt with the changes and be part of the bigger picture and look for the advancement and efficiency. And I don't understand why anyone would want to be resistant to it if it can make your life better.
Yeah. better, easier, and really it's more in depth and more detailed than anything that I can do or most people can do, and it's just so much faster. And for all the boards and the homeowners that are looking to not be 100% self-managed, I mean, if you want to stay away from AI, you can be self-managed and do this on QuickBooks. Fair?
Agree.
Or it's Excel or on a legal pad if you want. Not recommended, but you can do that.
Right.
If you're going to employ some sort of service, whether it be a service like HOA Assist or a traditional management company, you will be dealing with levels of artificial intelligence, whether you know it or not. But I don't think the resistance is going to be there for a very long time, simply due to the level of service that it outputs.
Mm-hmm.
Because the detail from even some of the stuff that I've seen is wildly better and more accurate, frankly, than typically what you would get from just a regular customer service representative.
Right.
And it's hard to say that because like that's a hard job. Customer service is a hard job. Those people should be highly respected. They're the first line of defense, right? And we love our customer service people, but I've seen where someone will, email in and AI will put together an email that needs to be approved by a person within seconds. That is vastly more detailed than anything, even if it's just a simple account question.
I just recently, or I'm in the process right now of creating a charter for the Association for Finance. I put the parameters in. Within seconds, it gave me 10 components of a charter. And all I have to do is tweak it. That would take me hours to type up.
Oh, sure.
And the efficiency.
Yeah.
And, I think too, which we probably didn't touch base on, but I think the true advantage for associations, whether they're self-managed or if they have a management company, is the legal aspect of what AI can do for you and how you can create great rules and regulations, how you can draft procedures that'll make you efficient. I mean, it's endless.
Sure.
The possibilities that you have.
And if you're not lying to yourself, it's fun. It's fun to mess around with. It's fun to see what it can do and play with it. It really is. In my experience, even just with relatively limited, it's really interesting, right? How it can analyze documents or pull together a spreadsheet for you or, create a chart out of a spreadsheet. I mean, you treat it, you ask it questions like it's a person. And it's going to become, from what I'm hearing, homeowners that choose to call in, they may not know they're talking to an artificial intelligence like bot or agent because of the way that they're coding these things to understand emotion, which that doesn't make sense to me, but it's a thing. So the AI can understand emotion. It recognizes different voice inflection during a conversation, and it processes all that in real time as if it were an actual human. And I'm just really curious to see what happens over the next 12 months, 24 months, and beyond, because it feels to me like these things happen way faster than we realize. Like it probably took a couple of years for people to get rid of their flip phones and go to BlackBerry, and then get rid of their BlackBerry and go to an iPhone. And then, that got faster. They got rid of their iPods and just used their iPhone. And then social media, right? Then that kind of took off. And it feels like AI, here we are, where people say like, oh, it'll be another 2 years. It'll be another 5 years. Well, it's here, and I think it'll be another 6 months. It's just happening at a rate that we can't really keep up with. And so from the people that I've been introduced to, that I've been able to talk about this with, it's almost like a warning. They're saying, get on board or you're going to miss the train. You're
Mhm.
simply going to miss the train if you don't adopt this.
And I agree. I mean, I think that's what people don't understand is how fast technology is advancing every day.
Yeah. And I don't think that message just goes to management companies. I think that message is relevant to board members. I think that message is relevant to homeowners, just as much as it's relevant to managers.
And see, it goes back to that original what's changed with an HOA and what they're paying. I mean, everything is accelerating so much, so fast
Mm-hmm.
that people are more demanding. They want more. They expect more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And especially now with what people are paying in assessments or dues, and that's a big investment, that unit that they have. So
Yeah.
they want a return on that investment.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. I'll wrap this up with letting you give some advice. If you could give advice to someone considering a role in HOA management, what advice would you give that person?
Well, I think no 2 days are going to be the same. You have to have a type A personality because ultimately, one of the things that you're never going to be bored. And what I think you get the fulfillment is trying to help people. And in fact, recently I just taught a class on burnout. And one of the comments I talk about is the DISC assessment. So you can go online, do a DISC assessment, see what type of personality you are. And based on your personality, you could be.
Is that like a Myers-Briggs or like an Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, it created in 1930. I could give you a whole story. The guy created Wonder Woman and the whole bit.
Really?
William Martin Marston, and there's a movie about him, but it's still used today. And it gives your personality, whether you're a D, an I, an S, a K supporter, or C, I should say.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And it's just a good test. But I think people today going into the association management industry, they don't want to put up with the nonsense. So they have to get a particular forte that they're going to be good at. I think if they have a skill set with technology, they'll excel because they're going to be able to manage more and work less.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry is just going to continue to evolve. And I think over time, associations are going to realize that they have to pay more to have the services done at their association than what they're paying the scavenger company.
Yeah. There's this idea that, you and I've had a lot of conversations about this, but HOA Assist is more of a self-serve type of style where our goal is to make it as easy as possible for the boards without having to have a physical property manager, on site. Now, we do work with on-site buildings, and that can work great. We love our clients that have those. But the idea is, how many tools can we give to you where you feel like you can still identify with being self-managed? And what's your thought? Because you kind of have two trains of thought. You have an asset manager, basically, where these people are highly trained for good reason. A lot of the communities require someone like that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then you have this idea of self-serve. Do you think the self-serve model, similar to HOA Assist and what other companies are doing with technology, is going to become more of a thing?
I think it is because of the cost of what it would take for a manager. I think the benefit that, or if it'll ever happen, I haven't really seen it, but I think boards should be paid for being on there. Why do they?
I don't disagree with that at all.
Why do they want to volunteer? I mean, I'm literally spending 30 hours a week to be board president, and a lot has been done, but the accolades only go so far.
What's the kind of time that would have, I'm curious, been for you? You said 30 hours a week now. What would that have been 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Same?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's the same as it was?
I think it's,
Or has the demand
well,
increased from board members?
I think it's been increased now only because it's become so sophisticated with ADA laws and rental restrictions and bidding and what you're looking for. Everything is, I mean, you have to get into a lot of minutia that you never would have before. I mean, 23 years ago, yeah, we need this. Yeah, go ahead and do it. You wouldn't even have a contract. Now you have to protect the association from every different angle. And I think that's what makes it
And
more
everything always
complicated.
points back to the board.
Always points back to the board.
What do you think that'll ever happen? You think that'll ever happen where board members are going to be able to be compensated like legally?
I think it will, because I think, well, even what we're going through right now with the CTA, that you have to give that personal information. I was with someone on Tuesday, again in Florida, and he said as soon as he requested that information, he had 7 board members quit because they didn't want to give the personal information out.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
So why shouldn't, as a board member, I be paid to do that? Because it's just endless, the amount of time and effort and everything else. And I mean, ironically, I have a new treasurer, and she's like, I can't believe how much time I'm spending doing all this work and how people are calling me and how I have to block them from not calling me at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Which is a shame. I mean, they're your neighbor.
Right.
They don't get paid for this right now, right? They volunteer their time, and it's abused. It's simply abused by a lot of homeowners that think, almost to the point where they're entitled to treat their fellow neighbor as if they're
punching bag.
Yeah. And I don't understand it. To me, the whole paying board members thing, I don't know how you feel like about sports and stuff, but it reminds me of, and I'm glad they did this, of the argument to pay college athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, especially if you're a Division I athlete and you go to a Big 12 or, SEC school or something, Big 10, there are a lot of students that, and not just students, but there's a lot of people that go to those schools because of the athletic programs, specifically, even specific athletes. Like, oh, I go to, this university simply because their football program's awesome or their basketball program rocks. Mm-hmm. And absolutely pay those players while they're there. They're bringing in millions of dollars of revenue. I think it's a very parallel argument to pay board members with that kind of lens.
It should be. I mean, you're volunteering, you're giving up your time, you're an expert in your field. And that's the other thing. You don't need to get on the board because you have an axe to grind with the previous board. You need to get on there because of you want to make a difference in the industry. You want the association to be better. I mean, I did not want to get on a board in my particular association, but the association was a train wreck.
Sure.
And if I didn't get on there and make a difference, it would just go further into the cesspool.
Does your board know what they got when you became a board president?
No.
They literally got like the best property manager in the country to be their board president?
They didn't know it. I just got my second Lifetime Achievement Award, and unfortunately,
congratulations.
Thank you. Another state. And we have a Facebook page, which is, we didn't even talk about social media, which is terrible. But I put a post on there about the article and the award, and everyone's like, yeah, we're lucky to have you. Yeah, could you imagine what it was like before?
Oh, your going rate would have been what, $200,000 a year to manage that property? Right. And I don't even think that's an exaggeration.
And again, we can talk about reserves, but kicking the can down the road. But people just don't understand what it takes to manage an association. It's a business. It's not a club. Yep. You're collecting millions of dollars maybe, and you have insurance and you have liability. And what about the long term? that you're going to have an effect on that
Mhm.
association. It's really very detailed what they need to get into.
Yeah, that's a really good point to drive home to people. Is I heard two things there. Don't get on the board because you have an axe to grind. I think that's great advice. So if that's you out there, take a step back, take a deep breath before you decide to serve on the board. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, I guess is what I'm saying. And then the second one is, this is not a social club. This isn't for fun necessarily. It's a business. You have to treat it that way. Because it's a corporation. That's why they have to file for the CTA and all that kind of stuff. Do you think it will be something that board members get paid for? I am curious about that.
I do. It's just going to be a matter of time, because I think as time progresses, people see the responsibility, the liability, and even though that you have D&O insurance and you do have some type of protection, but they're not going to. Why give up my time? I mean,
have you been seeing anybody lobby for that?
No. And here's a bad comment that I used to make as a former manager. I'm getting paid to be here. What's your excuse? You're doing this for free.
Yeah.
And why do you want to do that? Why do you want to take all that aggravation, grief, time away from your family to be chastised or to be criticized for not picking the right company?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's extremely underappreciated. Huge bummer. Board members, we love you. Keep serving because we need you. And we're here to help. I think every management company at the core of what they're doing, truly, they got into the industry because it's a service industry.
Mm-hmm.
They got into the industry to yes, make some money, but to help people, because it can be broken, and everybody has their way of trying to solve that particular problem. All these companies that have core values and, their mission statements and all that kind of stuff, it really, at the end of the day, comes down to, we are here to be helpful. And there's some management companies that do that extremely well.
Mm.
And there's some companies out there that don't do it extremely well. And it's no different than any other industry. I just think that there's so many moving pieces to this that oftentimes, and we didn't get into buying or real estate or any of this stuff, but I think, and I've said this before, I think a lot of people just don't understand what they bought into when they purchased in an HOA.
They don't. I mean, buyers are becoming more sophisticated, but they don't understand the dynamics of purchasing into an association, what their responsibilities are, what they can do. I mean, when you really break it down, what's their number one goal? They have to pay assessments, and they get to vote in an annual election. They can't veto the actions of the board. So, but board members are worth their weight in gold. That's
100%.
And if you have a great board member, you want to compliment them, you want to support them, you don't want to attack them, because they're the ones that are making a difference for your investment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Before we wrap this up, I want you to talk a little bit about your book or books that you have. Let people know that they're out there, how they can get them. Amazon. So sorry, what books have you written or co-authored?
So I have several books that are about industry practices called Through Association Help Now and Best Practices. I have a book on Amazon called Working from Home, Making It Work for You. And it's about job satisfaction. And that could tie into a board member too, about being satisfied working from home. I have several more books that are coming out. I have a YouTube channel coming out. Just a lot of things that work in to help the industry as a whole and make it better for everyone.
Yeah. So you've got a finger in every pot.
I try to.
Yeah. If someone wanted to get a hold of you to order a book, purchase a book, services with the bank, how can they contact you? And I'll put your information on the screen. But
the best thing to do is just to Google my name, and then you can get me on LinkedIn. And when you Google my name, the bank will come up.
Yeah.
But it's always amazing that I talk to people, they're amazed that I have 25,000 connections on LinkedIn and that it's still growing because everyone will contact me for something. And then now it starts a whole nother avenue or approach.
I've known you for a handful of years now, and I still kind of don't know how you do it. But for everyone that's listening and you want to get a hold of Tom, it's Tom Engblom, is ENGBLOM. So reach out to him. I'm not blowing smoke when I said he knows everybody. He just said he's got 25,000 connections on LinkedIn, or 2,500? 25,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's just incredible. So your career is amazing. Really appreciate you coming in here and chatting with me today. Hopefully it's helpful to the people that watched. And I know that there's a laundry list of things that we didn't even talk about. So next time you're in town, maybe we can do it again.
Next time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.